Welcome to the Trip Tales podcast with me, Kelsey Graves. Let's jump into a new episode exploring a vacation destination that you'll want all the details about. Hey everyone, welcome back to Trip Tales. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that the best way to show your support for the Trip Tales podcast is to visit my buymeacoffee.com support page. On this website, you can buy me a coffee or two and write a little note. I love when listeners share about a particular episode that they really enjoyed in the note section. It helps me know what types of episodes and destinations to record more of in the future. You can always find my buymeacoffee.com link in the episode show notes or on my website, triptalespodcast.com. Okay, let's head south to Central America and visit Panama with my guest, Jessica. Jessica has actually already been on the podcast before. She was on episode 16, sharing about her family's magical Disney cruise sailing on the Disney Wish. And today she is back to share about her family's vacation to the country of Panama. Welcome back to the podcast, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me, Kelsey. I'm so glad to be back.
I start every episode with a rapid fire get to know you. So tell everyone where you live, what you do, and about your family.
We are outside of the Raleigh area in North Carolina. I am in tech full-time as a consultant. My husband is a licensed financial planner. We have two littles, an almost 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And whenever we're not recording our own podcast or, doing whatever life is keeping us busy with at the time, we try to get out of here. So we try to travel as much as we possibly can.
Yes. And Jessica is a fellow podcaster. She has a podcast her and her husband have a podcast called the Sugar Daddy Podcast, and it's a financial literacy podcast. So if y'all need to learn how to save your pennies in order to go on more trips, you need to pop over there and listen to their episodes.
Yes. We actually just had Aunt Kara on, who is big on travel points, miles, kind of hacking. So I'm sure you're of that same mind. If we don't have to pay for it outright and we can use points and miles, we love to do that as well. So we are trying to dig deep into that space and get everybody a little bit more educated on how to maximize that as well.
Amazing. I'm going to have to check out that episode. So I've traveled near-ish to Panama, but never actually to Panama. I've been to Belize, Peru, Brazil, but I'm eager to learn more about Panama today. So what made your family choose this destination for a vacation?
So first things first, I wanted to leave for Christmas, like literally not be home for Christmas, not the week before, not the week after. I wanted to be gone for Christmas. I am a busy, working mom. And so Christmas, although I love it and I think it's magical, it can come with a lot of extra stress. And so I was like, where can we go that's warm, where I can have a cocktail by the pool? And because we still have small kids, I wanted a direct flight. And so out of RDU, we now have Copa that flies direct to Panama. And so when I started looking up the prices of where we could stay and for how much, Panama just hit the nail on the head. So it was really exciting because we were able to book our flights and our hotels in that $5,000 range. And that's really what we were aiming for.
Awesome. How did Christmas work? Are your kids young enough that you kind of just breezed over it? Did you do it before? Did you do it there? Like, how did that all work?
So the idea was to do stockings only. So we started prepping them and started having conversations with them really after the Disney cruise, where we said, hey, you guys have so much stuff. Your playroom is full. Your rooms are full. How about we just start taking trips instead of getting presents? Like, how would you feel about that? And my daughter, who's almost 7, was like, well, the plane ride is like a present, and going to the pool every day is like a present.
What
And
a sweetie.
she really she got it, right? And my son was like, I want presents. And so we decided, my husband and I, that we would do stocking stuffers only. And we just didn't tell them. So we still wanted to have that surprise element for them. So we just said, hey guys, we're going to do no presents. And Santa knows that we're going to go on this trip and he's, going to help us with this trip. And so we ended up doing Christmas before we left, because even though we only did stocking stuffers, it got a little heavy on the packing side when I started breaking it all down.
The stockings were overflowing a little bit.
They were. And I was like, you know what, if I spend the time to wrap them now, who knows what condition they're going to be in. And so we just decided to do Christmas early. And we are still very much in the elf on the shelf phase. So our elf Percy, said, hey, Santa wanted to know that he was thinking about you guys and he did not forget about you, even though you're going to Panama. And so it was still really special. So we still had our own little pre-Christmas morning. And then that way they got to choose a couple of the things to bring on the trip to play with while we were on vacation. So it was great.
I love it. Good job, Mom. That's so cute.
Thank you.
So, how did you piece together what areas you wanted to visit in Panama and where you wanted to stay?
One of our best friends is Panamanian. So we had our own little personal travel agent. And so she really guided us on the things that she thought our family would really enjoy. And so we knew
Perfect.
we wanted to stay at the beach. So we ended up staying at the Westin Playa Bonita. And it really is like a resort. There was multiple pools, lots of places for dining. They have a kids club. It's right on the beach. It is a little remote. Like there's not many places that you could walk to as far as shopping or dining outside of the resort. But again, as long as there's a pool and a beach, we're pretty happy. And so we stayed 4 nights there and we had a great time. We did want to also explore the rainforest and maybe see, the monkeys and the sloths and things. And so she guided us on where to go for that. So we ended up going to Gamboa Rainforest, which I think we definitely should talk about. And then we spent the last 2 nights in the city because there's a lot to do in the city as well. And so we ended up staying at the W Panama, which let me tell you was grown and sexy. It was
I love it.
incredible. Yes. So we should get into all of that for sure.
Okay, so fun. So you flew Copa over there, your family of four. Did the flights and everything go smoothly? It's amazing you have a direct flight. That's awesome.
It was so nice. Everything went smoothly. Flights were about $3,600 for us. So they were the most expensive part of the trip by far. But again, you get on the plane and you get off in a new country, and it was easy breezy. No
And how
complaints.
long-ish was the flight? Do you remember?
About 4.5 hours.
Okay, that's not so bad.
No, totally doable.
And then when you got there, do you guys have any sort of global entry or how was customs? Did it take a long time?
So Brandon and I have global entry, but with my busy schedule, I just have not solidified it for the kids yet. That is
So
on.
they don't get, like, I know with TSA pre-check, your kids just get it. They don't with global
Yes,
entry.
they don't. No. So we do
Okay.
have pre-check. And when we purchased our tickets, the kids automatically get pre-check, which was great. They didn't have to take off their shoes or anything like that. Global entry, they have recently changed the rules. I believe it was October 2024 where they changed the rules to where you don't have to pay for your kids to have global entry, but you still have to apply for them separately and they have to go through the interview process.
Oh,
So
wow.
you still have to schedule the interview. If you can tack it on to a trip where you're flying internationally and you can come back usually before 4 p.m., I would just schedule the interview to do that when you come back from your trip. Otherwise, you can find a supporting airport and do your interview that way. So we did not have global entry getting in, but customs and everything, honestly, was a breeze. Like there was at a point where I was like, oh my gosh, this is taking too long. This is cumbersome. There is something that happened on the way back that I think I should mention, which we can talk about it now or later. You let me know, but
Let's talk about it later. We'll keep everybody in suspense.
okay, perfect. So no
Okay,
global entry. We did have pre-check and everything was nice and easy.
great. So you get to Panama and then you need to make your way to your first hotel. Like you said, the Westin Playa Bonita. And it looks like the Playa Bonita is kind of just like a beachy area outside of Panama City. So how did
Yes.
you guys get that way? Did you rent a car? Did you use transportation?
We did not rent a car the entire trip. We did pre-book our trip to and from the hotel and airport. Every other time we got in a vehicle, it was an Uber. They're readily available, no problems, and they're super cheap.
Great. Good to know.
Mhm.
So, as you're making your way to your first hotel, what were your initial observations about Panama? And was it the same or different than what you had expected?
So we arrived in the evening. It was past 9 p.m. by the time we actually got into our car. So there was not much to see. I will
Yeah.
say from PTY to the Westin, it was about a 40-minute drive. And it was pretty easy. I mean, you go over a couple of bridges, you go, up the hill, down the hill, through the forest. It was an easy drive, but there wasn't a ton to see. So no initial reactions at that time.
That always stinks showing up somewhere at nighttime, especially if it's like a pretty place or a place with a view or mountains, because you're just like, I don't know. But it is fun
I
to
don't
wake up
know.
the next morning and be like, wow, look where we are.
Exactly. It felt like a surprise. The kids were exhausted, of course, by the end of the day. So by the time they woke up, and they like opened the curtain and they saw the beach and like the little islands off, off the coast, they were thrilled. And when we checked into the Westin, one of my favorite things to do is to always ask for an upgrade, right? Is there
Amen,
an upgrade
sister.
available? And so we were booked for a rainforest view on the executive club level. So that included breakfast and like a little heavy hors d'oeuvre cocktail hour every night from 6 to 8. And so I just said, are there any upgrades available? And they ended up giving us an oceanfront room with a balcony. And so
Amazing.
it was a great little upgrade that we really enjoyed.
Yes, I am all about an upgrade ask. My husband will often like check into the hotel. Sometimes they'll text you and be like, your room's ready, and you can kind of like check it on your phone. And I'm like, no, don't check it on your phone. We have to go
Right.
speak to a person, talk to someone. It doesn't hurt to ask. I mean, and a lot of times, they're sitting behind that computer all day long. It brings them a little bit of joy to give it to somebody that's nice. And I'm all about that. And it doesn't always happen, but when it does, it is the best feeling.
Exactly. It doesn't hurt to ask. What's the worst that happens? You stay in the room that you booked. But
Right.
sometimes it really does pan out.
Yeah, awesome. Well, good job. Tell
Thanks.
us about the hotel. Tell us what the hotel was like and your room since you got an upgrade and everything.
I would say that the rooms are a bit dated. There was enough space. We did two queen beds. The bathroom was kind of all in one. So you had one sink and then the shower room and the toilet room. They were all within that same space. I know sometimes the sink is separate, which makes it easier with kids, right, when you're getting ready. But all in all, we didn't spend very much time in the room. So it was totally fine. Again, lots of pools, really, really big pools. They also had swim up bars and, bars and food options all around. The beach was pretty narrow. And I would say, if you're used to the white sandy beaches, that is not what you're going to get in Panama. So it is a little bit more gritty. The water is not clear, but otherwise, my kids had a blast. You give them a shovel and show them some crabs, and they're happy as can be. We did get in the water. It was pretty calm, and it was, I would say, more on the refreshing side. I thought it was going to be warmer, but otherwise, we did get in the water and we, spent time on the beach and in the ocean. My kids tend to love the pool more. And so we spent a lot of time at the various pools. There is a kids club. They had different activities throughout the day. They also had a ton of beach toys that you could just grab and go and put back when you were done, which was really nice. So you don't need to pack your own. And then they had lots of different restaurant options as well. So they had an Asian bistro style. They had an Italian place. They had the daily buffet upstairs, which was really nice and had a lot of the local type of cuisine. So your plantains, your yuca, your beans and rice. There's a lot of fish options in Panama throughout. Obviously, you're at the beach or by the ocean. So if you like seafood, you'll get a lot of ceviches on the menu, things like that. And then as far as what to eat for lunch, they usually set up like a little barbecue type area where you could basically buy a plate. Now, the one thing that I didn't do is we didn't do the all-inclusive package, but it is an option at the Westin Playa Bonita. So if you don't want to think about, purchasing cocktails or purchasing meals ad hoc, you could do a meal package, and they have those in different tiers. My kids are super picky. My husband and I don't need, the abundance of meals throughout the day. And so we opted just to do the executive club level, which comes with that breakfast, which I think was great because you need to fuel your body for the morning before you head out to the beach. And then in the evening, we would go and grab a glass of wine or a cocktail, let the kids snack on a few things, and then we would find dinner elsewhere. So lots of different food options. They were great.
Nice. On that club level, what was the breakfast like? Was it the same as the hotel breakfast buffet? Were there a lot of options, hot options? Like what was all available to you guys?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like the most incredible spread, but there was always something warm. They had cereals, they had oatmeal, they had fresh fruit, coffee. They always did, mimosas, or you could do some other breakfast cocktails. They had different kinds of pastries, different types of breads, meats, cheeses. And then again, some mornings they would have potatoes and yuca with some sort of, sausage or bacon side. Sometimes they had, like French toast they had, which my kids loved, and pancakes they had as well. So, I mean, I think there was enough for everybody to find something. They had different fresh juices, yogurts. I mean, we always found something that hit the spot for us. Of course, some sort of egg. Sometimes they were scrambled, poached, fried. They just kind of did their own thing. So it wasn't a huge buffet, but in general, it was on a very high floor, had great views. They had an outdoor patio as well if you wanted to sit outside for breakfast.
That's nice.
And it was really nice. Again, one of my reasons of wanting to do this was I didn't want to have to cook and clean and empty the dishwasher and make the beds and clean up after the kids every morning. And so it was nice to come upstairs, have food that's already made for you, have somebody bring you the coffee the way you like it. And when you're done, you say thank you and you leave, and you don't have to clean up. So it was great. I had no complaints.
I love it. I know when I go on vacation, I really try not to cook just because it's like that's what we do every other day of life. Like, let's just settle into
Exactly.
vacation and let someone serve us.
Exactly. I'm all about it.
I like that you said the water was refreshing. That's a nice way of not saying the water was so cold. But what was the weather like in December down in Panama?
So it's still very warm. It was very humid. I mean, you will want to wear shorts and, cute summer dresses. You could do your bathing suit in the morning with just a cover up. And then, of course, when you go into the rainforest, it's super humid as well. We did have 2 days of 1.5 days of rain. So you're outside of the rainy season technically in December, but there's just so much moisture in the air. It's going to rain at some point. But
Yeah.
otherwise, it's warm and sunny.
This is kind of random, but I love beautiful topography. My husband and I both do. And sometimes we pick vacation destinations on gorgeous topography. And I noticed in the photos of this hotel in particular that it's situated right on the water. But in the distance, you've got these like lush rolling hills and even mountains that you're like seeing off into the rest of Panama. It looked gorgeous.
Yeah. So on the days that it was nice and clear, that's exactly what you see. There was like literal islands in the ocean that you would see, and they were just covered in trees and all of the tropical plants. And it really was very beautiful. Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, tell us about some of the things you did while you were in this area, or did you just chill at the hotel and the pools the whole time?
So when we were at the Westin, we mostly chilled at the hotel, but then we did take an Uber to Gamboa, which is a rainforest nature preserve. And so we spent most of the day there one day. Also, very beautiful property. You can actually stay there. It's also a resort, so they have pools, restaurants, etc. We decided to just do a day trip there. And so we did the package that includes a boat tour of the Panama Canal, where you stop at different, again, islands in the water to see different types of monkeys. We also did the air tram, which is like a gondola that goes into the rainforest so that you can again see the monkeys. They let
Cool.
you, yeah, it was very cool. Although I do now know that heights are no longer my thing as I'm getting older. So you're really, if you've ever done like zip lining, through the jungle, which I've done in Costa Rica, and I loved it at the time. Now I'm like in this metal gondola, and I'm even more nervous than when I was like just in a zip line
Probably
zipping
because you're
through.
hanging, this massive metal structure is
Yes.
hanging from a cable wire. That's how
Oh.
I feel also. We just went skiing and you take a gondola up, and at one point you're over a
Hmm.
massive canyon. Like the peaks of the mountains go up on each side. And I mean, I'm trying to stay calm, keep my kids calm. I hope that they can't hear
Hmm.
me in the other room right now, but I am just like, if I know it's not going to snap, but if it did, we are
We're done.
plummeting to the earth. Yes.
Hmm. And that sounds like a terrible way to go. And those are the same thoughts that I had. So I'm glad I'm not alone in that. I was like, isn't this great? Isn't this pretty? Look at that monkey over there. And inside, I'm like, oh my God, it's a tiny cable. What's happening?
Yes.
Why did I sign us up for this?
Like how
No,
many
but
people could fit in one? Was it just your little family or were you with other people as well?
so they were different sizes. On the way up, we were just the four of us. And then on the way back, it was the four of us and another mom and son. So it was six of us. So I think
Okay.
six was the max.
Okay.
But again, I was like, 6 people is a lot of weight in one gondola. And yeah, it just don't think about it if you're going to
Okay.
do it.
And then is it like a long ride? Is it 5 minutes? Like how long are you kind of in this gondola?
The more you look down, the longer it feels. No, I think, on the way up, it's probably 20, 25 minutes. And then
Oh,
you
that's kind of
actually,
long.
it went very slow. It went very slow. Again, they want you to see all the different animals that are there. We did see, several different types of monkeys. And then, of course, like nature is beautiful. There's so much vegetation that really is interesting. They let you off at the top and then you get out, and there's actually a lookout tower that you do this like little walk into the rainforest, and then you go up this tower. I don't remember how many feet it was, but it's all ramp. So it's not stairs. The ramp makes it so much easier. And then you have a great view of, again, the canal at the top and all the vegetation, the rolling hills. It was really beautiful. Then when you come back down, you grab another gondola and you head back down. And the way down, I would say, was maybe about 15 minutes. So
Okay.
45 minutes to an hour, depending on how long it takes you to walk up to the lookout point, or if you decide to do that because it's totally optional.
Hey, Trip Tales listeners, I'll keep this short. If you're loving the podcast, leaving a review or buying me a coffee is the quickest way to show your support, and it will ensure that these amazing trip stories keep coming. Leave a review wherever you are listening to this podcast, or buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes, and I'll literally do a happy dance when it comes through. Okay, back to the show. Awesome.
Yeah.
Was there anything else to do in this area that you guys did, or was that kind of the main event?
So we did that. And then we also took a boat tour of the canal. That was super fun. We absolutely loved it. We also stopped at a number of islands and called for the monkeys, fed them bananas.
Oh,
So, I mean, the
fun.
monkeys literally jump on the boat with you. And they're wild, but they also know, hey, when a boat pulls up, I'm getting snacks.
Yeah,
So they showed us, a variety of monkeys, and that was really great. We also saw sloths and iguanas,
I love a
which was
sloth.
awesome. They're so cute. So there's also a sloth sanctuary in Gamboa that you can visit. There's also capybaras that run around the property everywhere. And if you've never seen one, this was my first time
Yeah,
seeing
I
them
haven't.
in real life, and they are so cute. I mean, they're technically a rodent, but I just thought that they were super adorable, and they were all over the property. There was a few other things that you could do there. We chose not to. The kids were getting a little tired, and we ended up needing to like stop and take a break and feed them lunch and all of that. But there's a butterfly house and an orchid conservatory, I think they called it. So if you really are into plants, you can go into their greenhouses. I mean, it really is a beautiful property. And again, you can stay on site if you don't want to feel like you're rushing through the day.
Nice. What did your kids think of all the animals approaching? Did they love it or were they scared?
They loved it. I think probably a little of both, right? But then they saw that for the most part they were safe, and we were towards the back of the boat, and a lot of times the monkeys were at the front of the boat where, the quote unquote captain had the bananas or the treats or whatever they were feeding them. And so they actually also like grapes, so they were feeding them grapes as well. And so sometimes they made their way through the middle of the boat, but we didn't have like that super close contact. I think they would have been freaked out by that, but it was a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
A monkey just like jumps on the boat and tries to grab a banana or a grape.
Exactly.
How was the language barrier in Panama?
So we do not speak Spanish. And I will say, I thought that more people would speak English or have a better grasp on English. So there was definitely times where we would get into an Uber and it was very clear, like we're on our own, right? Like the app is going to do what it needs to do and get us from point A to point B. I would highly recommend downloading the Google Translate app or some sort of translator. And if you know that you're going to have a specific question of a drop off point or something that you're going to want to ask, whether it's, at the hotel or the waiter, go ahead and type it into your app and then, have them read it or sound it out, again, via the voice option on the app. In the resorts, I think it was totally fine. So when we were at the Westin, there was, people spoke English just fine, as well as when we went to the W. I mean, obviously those are touristy places, but if you're, in town, and you are maybe going somewhere that's a little bit more remote, you're probably going to have to put in a little bit more work to be understood and to get the answers that you're looking for.
Got it. And kind of in the same breath, how did currency work? Did you just use your credit cards everywhere? Did you need the local currency?
So the Balboa is the local currency. It was a 1-to-1, so there was no savings, if you will.
That's kind of
Although
crazy.
things are right. I was very surprised. Although I will say things are less expensive. So for example, the first time my husband and I got mojitos by the pool, I got two of them, and the total was like $11. And I was like, wait, what? Did
Yeah,
they charge
normally
me for
that's
both?
like
And
it's
so
yeah, one is more than
not even a
$11 at a
drink.
resort. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So that was like a pleasant surprise. Food, I think, also was was less than what we'd be used to in the United States. We used our credit card because again, if I can get points, and have things safe, and then we would always just tip in cash. And I would tip in dollars. So one time we got Balboa back. But most of the time there was just a dollar exchange.
Nice. In terms of when you stayed in this area, did you mostly just eat at the resort or did you venture out to any other restaurants? And were there any like standout meals or foods or anything?
We ate a lot at the resort just because it was easy. It was also Christmas time and they're a very Christian country. And so things were not open the first like 3 days that we were there, which is totally what we planned for. When we did start venturing out and we went into town, there were some local spots again that our friend had recommended that we went ahead and went to. One in the old town in particular, which was basically just like a cute little coffee shop that had empanadas and fresh smoothies, and it was just really cute, and it was like the perfect little lunch before walking around downtown. There was also another place on the Amador Causeway, which is the long stretch of highway that basically takes you from the city into the harbor. And so there's a lot of places to eat there, but we specifically ate at a place called Sabrosa because they do these big cultural dances. Now, here's the one thing that I'll say about Panama, and this is what my friend warned us of, is time is pretty fluid. So if you have a reservation, it may or may not be at that time. Nobody's really in a rush. It is almost like island time, if you will. So if you're a stickler for being somewhere at the right time, like I am, you just have to mentally prepare for that to potentially not happen. So because of Christmas, we made our reservation on Christmas Day there for the evening. We got an early reservation. We like wanted a great seat and all of that. It was so packed that the dancers were stuck in traffic, and it was past 8:30. They were supposed to start at 8. It was past 8:30 and they still weren't there, and our kids were getting antsy because we'd already been there for 3+ hours at this point, and it was a whole thing. We ended up not staying for the performance. I don't know if it ever
Oh,
happened. It
yeah.
took us it took us over 2 hours to get back home, and it was, maybe 2 or 3 miles. I mean, it was packed, but culturally again, it showed us, wow, like Panamanians love Christmas. Fun fact, they go crazy with fireworks. So
Oh,
all
funny.
night long you will hear fireworks leading up to like midnight on Christmas.
Wow.
Um, and it was packed. The streets were packed. I mean, kids were out there roller skating on scooters. You can rent bikes. It felt really just, it felt like a festival. I mean, I walk around here in the evening in my neighborhood and sometimes I don't see a soul. And it
Hmm.
was wonderful to just see the community, right? I mean, everybody was out. I mean, with babies, toddlers, it didn't matter. I mean, it was probably pushing 11 something by the time we got home, and everybody was out and ready to just party. It was great to see.
Fun. Sounds like a fun place to celebrate Christmas. The
Yes.
restaurant you mentioned, was it Sabrosa?
Yes.
Okay, was there like a stage where there was going to be a performance or what? Was it like dinner and a show type
It's
feel?
like dinner and a show where they basically are like in the crowd. The crowd can get up and dance. We had a balcony seat when we first got there. And so we sat at the balcony overlooking the water and all of the yachts and everything. So it had a great view. Again, lots of ceviches on the menu, lots of very like Panamanian type dishes. My husband doesn't really eat seafood like that. And we kind of just started snacking on things, and we did a lot of things off of the appetizer menu because we wanted the kids to try certain dishes, just so that they would have that experience as well. So the food that we did have was great. The drinks were awesome. So we had a good time, although, we missed the show. So
Ah, bummer.
that was the bummer.
Yeah. I'm sure the hotel does a great job catering to the kids, but when you were out and about, did restaurants have typical kids menus like we're used to, or were your kids just trying to figure out some Panamanian food to eat?
No, they all had kids menus. I mean, especially if you're like at a true restaurant. So, for example, the little coffee shop that had the homemade empanadas that people said, "Hey, you have to go here." They didn't have a kids menu, right? But it was a sandwich coffee shop type of place. But
Yeah.
all of the other restaurants at the hotel and outside that we went to, they all had a kids menu where you can do pizza and fries and a burger and chicken tenders.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Do you
Mhm.
remember the name of this coffee shop that was so highly recommended? I feel like people need to know.
The super cute coffee shop with homemade empanadas and smoothies and sandwiches is called Super Gourmet, and it's in Casco Viejo, which is essentially the old town. So what we did is we took an Uber from the W into the old town, had lunch, the kids had smoothies, and then we just started walking and we just explored downtown. There's something called a Raspado, which is essentially shaved ice that you will absolutely want to do. You can do it almost anywhere where there's a walking path, and it's basically a cart where somebody will take a metal cup and literally grind it against a huge block of ice to make a cup of shaved ice. And then they have different fruit juices that you can pick from to put on top. And then they drizzle it with like a sweet condensed milk, and the kids loved it. It's a $2 treat. It's really a cultural experience. I've never seen shaved ice done like this. And it was so fun. The kids loved it. I mean, they still are like, "Can we get a Raspado today?" And I'm like, "We're in North Carolina.
Yeah.
No,
You're like,
where do
we've
you
got
want me to
Kona
get
ice,
this?"
but it's not the same.
It's not at all the same. No, after this, you will only want a Raspado, I promise. So the old town was absolutely great. We did go to the Museo de Mola, which is a free museum highlighting the Mola art belonging to the Guna Yala indigenous tribes.
I
And
feel
so
like I do
these
not know
are
anything you just said.
well, so you'll see a lot of this woven fabric,
Okay.
and it's 7 layers of woven fabric that has different patterns stitched into it. And so it's very specific to this indigenous tribe. And you'll see
Okay.
them around downtown as well, making purses and art that you can then buy. But the museum, unless you're going to read every plaque, which again, we had our kids with us, so we didn't. It's a tiny little building. It's beautiful. It's very well done, and you can walk through and see beautiful Mola art, and it's free. And so it's kind of started drizzling a little, so it was the perfect time to pop in, pop out, and then we went on about our day.
What
Um,
was Old Town like? I'm picturing it as opposed to like skyscraper city vibes, more like culturally, old world architecture type.
yeah,
Uh,
that's exactly right.
yeah.
Yes. So, older balconies, colorful buildings, lots of plants still. So, lots of palm trees and window baskets. I mean, it was really cute. You're still on the water, you have great views. There's a section of Old Town where you can basically like walk up these huge old steps. You see this bridge going into the city, you're on the water, and then there's a bunch of street vendors that are selling different kinds of arts and crafts and tchotchkes, and that's where we got the raspado as well. So
Nice.
it was really nice. Yeah.
So at this point, you guys had moved to your second hotel, which was the W, more in downtown
Yep.
Panama. So you said it was a vibe. So tell us a little bit about the hotel.
So I would say this hotel is not made for children. Now, I will say my kids had a great time. However, they definitely were like, "Can we go back to the pools?" So
Yeah.
it has a pool. I will say it starts instantly at like 3.5 feet. So my son, who is not a good swimmer, the weather didn't allow for it, but even if they wanted to get in the pool, it wouldn't have been great because there was not like a zero entry. It was stairs into 3.5 feet. And so it was very pretty. You could kind of see the city. You definitely had the view. The rooms were massive. I mean, absolutely gorgeous, huge rooms. Again, we did the double queen bed. We had so much space
That's
there.
great for a family. I mean, even
It
though it's
was,
not a family technical, like family friendly type of hotel, at least you've got the space.
you have the space, absolutely. There's a couple of bars, and the bars all serve different food. And so for those 2 nights, we actually ended up just doing bar food for dinner, and it was all very good.
You're like,
They
come on
also,
into the bar, kids. I feel
yeah,
like W's
basically.
always have such a vibe. I remember staying at them when I would like work in New York and Chicago and stuff, and it was always such a like uns vibe.
That's exactly. It's dark. It
Yeah, low
had
lighting,
low lighting, the walls are black. I mean, it's just a vibe. It
like
was,
lounge
it
furniture.
was,
Yeah.
yes, it's very moody, very dark, sexy. The lights barely on. You're like, I can't even read this menu with my old
Yeah.
eyes. They had a foosball table at one of the bars that my kids absolutely loved. They had this little French bistro downstairs, I think called Paul. And so that was a great place. You could grab sandwiches, grab coffee. They had amazing macaroons. Like it was just very nice to be able to pop down there, grab some food as well. And we actually booked that with our Amex Platinum card through the Fine Resorts and Hotels collection. So then
Nice.
you get breakfast, which I will say this breakfast was one of the best buffet breakfasts I've ever had. And I'm very well traveled. I will say that. It was absolutely gorgeous. Like literally picture real honeycomb at the front of the buffet, literally dripping, the honey's dripping into a bowl. And
Wow,
like,
I know. I love a nice fancy hotel breakfast buffet because, like you said, they're not all the same. We've all been
no,
to a breakfast buffet in our lives, but the nicely done ones are like, there's nothing better.
it was absolutely incredible. The fruit, the cheese, the meats, the pastry. I mean, everything it was stunningly put together. It was delicious. It was gorgeous. I mean, it was amazing. And then you get that for free if you book through Fine Hotels, through the Platinum. We also got the $100 resort credit. So that's when we got our little bar foods and things. We ended
Nice.
up paying, aside from what we paid for the room, we ended up leaving with a $29 bill. And I feel like we
That's
didn't skip
insane.
a beat. Right. We didn't skip a beat. Everybody ate everything they needed. We got cocktails, all the things. And so that was definitely, if you have an Amex Platinum and you're going to book the W, do it through the Fine Hotels and Resorts collection. So that was really fantastic. Those last 2 days, the weather wasn't great, and so we were actually supposed to go to Taboga Island via the ferry, and it was torrentially downpouring. And so we
Mm,
decided to forfeit our tickets. But one of the things that we weren't going to be able to do was go to the Biomuseo, which is basically their biological history museum. It's not free, but it was beautiful. Again, very well done. And you get to learn all about how did Panama form? What is it like when it comes to vegetation, weather, all of that. It talked about the animals that originated when Panama was first formed and how that's evolved. And so, we spent a few hours there. The kids really loved it. They had a lot of like immersive type experiences. And so I thought that was really great for the kids to learn about Panama in that way. So we didn't get to do the island or the ferry, but we did end up getting to do that museum, which was awesome.
nice. So that Isla Taboga, what would it have been if you had been able to go? Like, what were you expecting?
Just a fun beach day.
Okay.
So there you could have done, you could have dined there, you could have ridden bikes there. All of that is very much available. I believe there is a lighthouse that you can go and visit, and typical island type
Like
things.
a
We
beachy
were
island day,
like a beachy island day is what we were hoping for.
but it was
Now,
downpouring.
but it was downpouring. The one thing that I will call out is that you book your ticket for the time you want to get on the ferry and the time you want to leave. And because it's very crowded and locals are also using that ferry, it's very unlikely that you would be able to get on a ferry earlier. So, for example, if you wanted to take the 11 o'clock ferry and then you booked the 4 o'clock ferry home, but you decided that you wanted to leave at 2, you might end up feeling stuck. So that's
Okay,
just something to call out. And that's something that you should also book in advance because the tickets do sell out.
got it. Tell us a little bit more about the, I'm going to try to say it, Cinta Costera. Is that the big kind of highway and pedestrian walkway where you can connect from one point to another?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the highway that stretches along the ocean in the city. So you have New Panama City on the left and Old Panama City on the right. And yeah, it's a walkway. You can ride all the way from Casco Viejo to New Panama City. I will say infrastructure wise, they did a beautiful job. So you really can get your bikes, rent your scooters, you can walk it along the way. They have children's playgrounds, they have the
Oh,
big
cute.
Panama signs that you can take your touristy pictures with. Um,
What did you
they
guys do?
have
Did you walk it? Did you bike? I mean, every trip I go on, I feel like the biggest thing to do is bike ride. And I'm still like, I still can't picture doing that with my children. Like, we're going to the Grand Canyon. I'm like, not a chance. But I'm sure at some
we
point people start doing it.
you know what? We ended up not doing it at all. So we passed by it multiple times a day, every day. So they saw that it was out there, but because of the things that we wanted to get done, we never ended up just stopping and walking along. But again, it's very well traveled and people are definitely out there running, exercising, biking. And it's very well done. And you certainly have great views as well. The 2 days that we were in the city were very dreary because those were those rainy days. And so you didn't have the sight lines. I don't think pictures would have been super great. And so we just didn't make the extra effort to go and walk in the rain.
Got it. What were the people of Panama like?
Super friendly, really warm. I mean, we really had a great experience in that sense. Again, sometimes English got a little dicey depending on where you were. If you could find a younger person, you were typically okay. And again, checking in and out of the hotel, at the airport, things like that, it was totally fine. But I would say they were very warm. It's a very culturally rich and engaging country. So, if you really like learning about history and the dances and the dresses and all of that, then there's a lot to learn and a lot to do.
Nice. Is there anything else you did in Panama that we haven't touched on yet?
So when we were in the old town, we were told we needed to go to the old historic Sofitel hotel. And it was just very pretty. It's on the water. It's right there by the stairs that I mentioned earlier, where you can go up and get a view of downtown and the water and the bridge. And then you go into, the little market area. And that's where we had our first Raspado as well. And there's a little bistro on the side that has great pastries. And not that we wanted to, because again, we were sweating, but they have a great hot chocolate, is what I've been told. And the hotel is very pretty. So you can go in, get some AC, look at the decorations. Again, it was Christmas time, so they had beautiful Christmas decorations up. And it's just in a very nice, very scenic part of the downtown of the old town. And then from there is where we walked to the Mola Museum, and it took less than 10 minutes. So in that area, everything's very walkable. And I would just say to just start exploring. They have a really nice city center. Again, you can get Raspado there. And that's a great place to just pop in and out of some stores and in and out of some little, souvenir shops or coffee shops. It looked like they had a lot of great bars and restaurants there as well. So my husband and I said we need to go back with our girlfriend and do the grown-up version of Panama because, of course we were trying to cater to our kids as much as possible.
Yes, I looked up pictures of that hotel and it looks incredible, amazing, definitely like a must see if you're in that area. And then is there anything else that was on your list that you didn't make it to?
So there's quite a bit. I definitely think we're going to have
A
to go
return
back.
trip
A return
is in the
trip.
works.
Absolutely. So Monkey Island, if you really want to get close to the monkeys, Monkey Island, if you Google Monkey Island in Panama, it'll come up. That's supposed to be super fun. Again, if you want them to actually jump on you and you want to feed them and you want to get up close and personal, Monkey Island is the place to do that. There was a couple of other things, like there is a Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute that I think would have been worth going into. And then there's also the Panama Canal Museum. And I do feel like, man, we should have booked tickets so that we can actually see the boats pass through the canal and really understand that lock and key system and really get the full breadth of what it means to go through the canal, how it was built, why it was built. There's also a museum downtown for the old train system. I mean, there's a lot of museums. So if you're a history buff, Panama is a great place for you to go. The Panama Canal Museum, I do feel like we should have prioritized that. And when we were on the plane back home, I was a little bummed that we didn't prioritize it.
Well, sounds like you're going to have to go back and you're just going to have to work on that adult version of the trip. And then you can really lean into the W hotel on that trip.
Yes. Oh, we would stay there again. Absolutely. Absolutely. We would stay there again. Yeah.
How would you say overall the kids did on this trip? Because, like you said, there were a lot of things that were a little bit more, catered towards adults, and the kids are just kind of like tagging along. So, how did they do overall?
They did okay. I mean, there's definitely times where they're like, "Oh, our legs are tired."
Yeah.
I
How
mean,
old are they both again?
almost 7 and 5.
Okay. Yeah, they're still little.
They're little, yeah. So, but otherwise, I mean, my daughter had a full-on breakdown when we got home because she wanted to be back in Panama. Very
Oh,
similar to what I think I described
yes,
after
on the
the
Disney
Disney cruise.
cruise. She's
She's our
just a
highly
travel lover. She's a
emotional.
wanderlust. She's just going to have to keep, you're like, honey, I get it. We're going to book another trip. We just got to do real life
Exactly.
for a minute. We got to earn
We're
some
already
money.
planning Jamaica for Christmas this year. So yes, 100%. She's highly emotional, loves to travel. Put her in a hotel room and she's happy. No, they did great. I mean, they were open to exploring. Our rule is always like try something new. So, they tried yuca at breakfast, they tried plantains, they loved the raspado, they tried practicing their Spanish. I mean, it was super cute. They really had a blast. And again, if there's a beach and a pool, you're 90% there to happiness, right?
Yes,
So
100%. Well,
yeah.
awesome. Good for them, little travelers. Okay, so how did the travel home go? You had mentioned that there might have been a little bit of a hiccup.
We just happened to ask the W because it was a very early flight back. Do you have any breakfast you could send us with when we check out at 5 o'clock in the morning? And they said, yep, not a problem. When I tell you what they packed was better than some restaurant meals that I've had in the United States. I mean, it was boxes of charcuterie, of fresh fruit, pastries, breads. It
Wow.
was absolutely beautiful and delicious. And
And was
so
this
we didn't
just
even,
sitting outside your door in like a bag, or how did you even
well,
get it?
so we went to check out that next morning and they said they would have it ready and it was sitting right there with our name on it and they
I
said
love
don't
that you
worry,
asked for
we'll
that. That's so smart. And it's because like you're on the club level anyway, so you're kind of missing a breakfast, but it's like, why not ask and they can just package it up for you?
well, and again, the worst thing they could say is no, we don't do that. And she
Right.
was like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And so I mean, we left with 2 bags. I just felt like if I had something for my kids at 5 a.m. to snack on in the car, getting them through the airport and all of that, I'd be in a better place than if we had nothing. We
Right.
were we were done with all of the snacks that we packed at that point. And so it was great. So yeah, if you're going to stay at the W and you have an early flight, ask them for the breakfast because it was amazing. We did end up using Priority Pass to get into one of the lounges, which again was great. They had a kids' room. The kids ended up, bonding with some of the other kids that were in there, and it was super cute. And then we went through, all of our checkpoints, got rid of our luggage, refilled our water bottles, all of that. And then when we got to our gate, we had to do it all again. That's what we were not prepared for. So there was another metal detector. We had to get rid of our waters. It was just
What?
frustrating. Exactly.
Why?
Don't ask. I have no idea. It's just the way they do it.
They do like double security?
It was double security. I was frustrated because they also didn't do it very well. So, for example, they dumped my daughter's water out, but my son, who had the exact same Yeti bottle, his went through. Right. And so it was just frustrating. Like we had to take off our shoes, we had to get rid of our waters. Like it felt like one more thing to do after we've already done it. And, at that point, you're mentally like, all right, now I'm ready to be home in my bed. And then
Yes.
like you have one more checkpoint. So I wasn't prepared for that. Next time we will be. It'll be fine. First world problems, but it
Yeah.
was annoying. It was
Yeah.
annoying at
That is
like the
annoying.
last 5 minutes of the trip, kind of feeling like that. So
Yeah. But flight home went fine. And then it was probably still quite a bit of Christmas break once you got home. Because if it was the same as where we are, Christmas break continued till like January 6th or something.
Yeah, and we even had a week after that. So our kids didn't go back until January 13th.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, my kids are in year round. And so we had, that 3.5 weeks of
No wonder
break.
you want to get away over Christmas. You're like, we got to get out of
Exactly.
here.
Well, I mean, honestly, like if you're going to pay for camp too, I mean, you're like, oh, might as well put that in a trip that we can all enjoy at that point. So,
Exactly.
absolutely. We ended up sending them to camp the last week, but everybody was happy to be home. Unfortunately, with the Copa flight, you basically lose a day on the way there, and then you still have half a day on the way back. So we were probably back home by 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was doing a grocery order on the way home,
Smart.
had it delivered that night, get our veggies and our fruits back and
Yes.
restock the fridge. So it all worked out. I mean, overall, it was a really great trip and we're happy that we went. And we definitely need to go back because there was a lot more to do.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect. That leads into the final question perfectly. I end every episode with, if someone out there is considering this trip, what is it about Panama that would make you say, just book it?
I think it has a lot to offer in terms of you have the beach, you have the rainforest, you have the downtown feel, you have the old downtown feel. So there's a lot to do for everybody on your list. If you have the people who love the museums, great. If you have the foodies with you, there's so many places that you can eat. If you love seafood, you're going to get really, really fresh seafood. If you want to be adventurous and do the gondolas in the rainforest and see the sloths and the caiman and the iguanas and all of that, the nature lovers, you can check that off. I mean, there really is a ton to do and probably just not enough time to do it, but it was a great trip. Just book it.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much. I didn't know a ton about Panama before this, but now I feel like I have a grasp on it and it sounds amazing. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of Trip Tales. If you have a trip you'd like to share about on the podcast, email me at triptalespodcast@gmail.com and I'll add you to the schedule. Also, be sure to follow the show so that you don't miss any upcoming vacation destinations. And if you have an extra minute in your day, please leave a review for the podcast. It helps more than you could imagine. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next episode of Trip Tales.